Good morning, everyone. Let me begin by asking you a simple question. Whose voice do you hear the most every day? It's not your friends, your parents, your teachers, or your boss. It's your own voice, that little voice inside your head, whispering your dreams, questioning your doubts, cheering you on, or sometimes pulling you back. The world is full of noise. Everyone has an opinion on how you should live your life, what you should do, how you should act, and what success looks like. But let me tell you something powerful. Real success comes only when you choose to listen to yourself. You are the author of your story, the architect of your dreams, and the only person who truly knows what sets your soul on fire. Yes, advice can be helpful. Guidance can be valuable. But at the end of the day, it's your life, and nobody else can walk your path for you. So if you want to succeed, not by the world's standards, but by your own, you must trust your voice, follow your instincts, and honor your truth. Because the only person who truly knows your potential is you. Let your inner voice be louder than the world's noise. Let your belief be stronger than their doubts. And let your vision guide you even when no one else sees it. Remember this. The key of success is simple. Only listen to yourself. The moment we are born, we are surrounded by influences from our families, cultures, schools, and societies. These external voices begin shaping our understanding of the world and our place in it. While they offer structure and tradition, they often drown out something far more essential, our inner voice, the quiet, intuitive wisdom within us that knows our deepest truths. Your inner voice is not just a passing thought or feeling. It is a complex, deeply personal compass built from your experiences, your dreams, your fears, your values, and your vision. It is not loud, and it doesn't always fight for attention. In fact, it is often the quietest voice in the room, especially when the world outside is shouting with opinions, expectations, and judgments. This inner voice is formed through every choice you've ever made, every lesson you've ever learned, and every emotion you've ever felt. It's shaped by your victories and your heartbreaks, your failures and your breakthroughs. It is uniquely tailored to your journey and no one else's. No teacher, no mentor, no friend, no parent, no matter how well-intentioned, can ever fully understand your path the way your inner voice does. It knows what drives you when no one's watching. It knows what breaks your heart, what gives you joy, what makes you feel truly alive. Listening to your inner voice means honoring your emotional truth, even when it contradicts what others expect of you. It means choosing passion over approval, integrity over image, and authenticity over acceptance. It often requires courage because it doesn't always align with the status quo. Sometimes it will tell you to leave a well-paying job that doesn't fulfill you. Sometimes it will push you to pursue a dream that everyone else calls unrealistic. Other times, it may ask you to slow down when everyone else is racing ahead, or to take a risk when the safe choice looks more sensible. But it never steers you wrong, not because it always leads to comfort, but because it always leads to truth. You may wonder, how do I distinguish between my inner voice and all the other voices in my head? That takes time. It takes stillness. It takes reflection. The inner voice is not driven by fear, guilt, or pressure. It doesn't scream, it speaks. It doesn't impose, it invites. It is not reactive, but calm, persistent, and honest. You'll recognize it when, even amidst uncertainty, you feel a strange sense of peace or alignment, like your heart is saying, yes, this is me, this is right. The irony is that in today's world, with constant notifications, endless content, and millions of voices vying for our attention, we've grown more disconnected from that quiet inner compass than ever before. We spend more time scrolling through curated lives than listening to our own uncensored thoughts. We look outward for direction when the most profound answers often lie within. We ask others what we should do when deep down, we already know. To truly succeed in life, not just in terms of material achievements, but in living a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, you must learn to trust that voice. That's the voice that tells you who you are and who you are not. That's the voice that remembers your why when the how gets hard. That's the voice that sees beyond momentary gains and pushes you toward lasting significance. It reminds you that success isn't a single destination or an award you hang on a wall. It's the continuous act of living in alignment with your truth. The more you listen to your inner voice, the louder and clearer it becomes. The more you honor it, the more it guides you, not with certainty, but with clarity. And in a world full of noise and distraction, clarity is a superpower. You begin to make decisions not out of obligation or fear, but from a place of conviction. You begin to move through life not as a follower of someone else's map, but as the creator of your own. That voice may not always offer the easiest path, but it will always offer the right path, the one that belongs to you. We live in a world deeply shaped by perception. Every day, we are surrounded by people who voice their thoughts, give us feedback, offer guidance, and sometimes unsolicited opinions. From family members and friends to coworkers, teachers, social media influencers, and even complete strangers, everyone seems to have something to say about how we should live our lives. And while some of these opinions may come from a place of love or concern, the truth is, most of them are deeply biased. Why? Because people see you through the filter of their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and limitations, not yours. When someone tells you that's too risky, what they often mean is they would be afraid to try it. When they say that won't work, they are often reflecting their own doubts, not an objective reality. People interpret your ambitions, dreams, and decisions through a personal lens that is shaped by their upbringing, culture, trauma, insecurities, and unfulfilled desires. Their comments, no matter how confident or convincing they sound, often have little to do with what's actually best for you. Imagine someone who spent their whole life working in a stable government job, valuing security and predictability. To them, your dream of starting a business or becoming an artist may seem reckless or naive, not because it actually is, but because it doesn't align with their worldview. Or take someone who once failed in a relationship. Their view on love may be tinted with cynicism, and they may advise you to be careful or never trust too easily. Again, this isn't necessarily because they want you to fail, but because they're projecting their emotional history onto you. Even well-meaning people can misguide you unintentionally. Parents, for example, often want their children to have better lives than they did, but sometimes they confuse safety with success, and in their desire to protect, they discourage risk-taking. A parent who once struggled as an entrepreneur may tell their child, just get a secure job. That advice isn't neutral. It's biased by pain, fear, and the scars of failure. Now let's talk about societal bias. Society at large pushes norms and definitions of success. Get a degree, find a high-paying job, buy a house, get married, retire at 60. But these societal templates are not one-size-fits-all. They were designed to serve a system, not necessarily the individual soul. If you measure your path against someone else's metric, be it fame, wealth, or popularity, you may achieve what others consider success and still feel profoundly unfulfilled. Social media amplifies this even further. Online platforms are often echo chambers of comparison and illusion. You see a 30-second clip of someone's seemingly perfect life, and suddenly you're questioning your own journey. You might receive dozens of comments about how you should act, look, think, or live, but these are just fragments of opinion, often based on incomplete information, manipulated images, or shallow assumptions. They are biased snapshots, not full truths. And here's the deeper layer. Many people offer opinions not based on your potential, but on their expectations of you. If you've always been seen as the quiet one, and suddenly you speak up and lead, some may react with surprise or even resistance. Why? Because you violated the version of you that they built in their minds. Their discomfort has nothing to do with your growth and everything to do with their inability to update their image of you. Bias also shows up in professional environments. Maybe a manager doesn't believe you're ready for a leadership role, not because you're not capable, but because of your age, your gender, your background, or your personality style. These are all subtle biases that can deeply affect the way people judge your potential and yet have absolutely nothing to do with your actual ability. Then there's fear-based bias. Many people subconsciously discourage others from chasing big dreams because it forces them to confront their own complacency. If you take a leap and succeed, it can make them uncomfortable, a living reminder of the risks they never took. So instead they say, be realistic, or don't get your hopes up, not because they want to help you, but because they want to justify their own comfort zone. That's why it's so dangerous to build your life around the opinions of others, because if you do, you're not living your life, you're living their fears, their patterns, their projections. You begin to lose the essence of who you are, replacing your own inner truth with an external script that was never written for you. It's not about rejecting everyone's input. Wisdom can come from many sources, but you must develop the discernment to recognize when advice is helpful and when it is merely a reflection of someone else's bias. That discernment comes from knowing yourself, truly knowing yourself, so you can tell the difference between an insight and an interference. Because ultimately, when you allow biased opinions to shape your decisions, you end up building a life that looks successful on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. You might have achievements, but not alignment, approval, but not authenticity, validation, but not fulfillment. And no matter how much applause you receive, it will never compensate for the feeling that you're not really living your life. In a world that constantly encourages conformity, celebrates trends, and measures worth by external metrics, choosing to be authentic can feel like swimming against a powerful current. Yet authenticity, being genuinely and unapologetically yourself, is one of the most underestimated and transformative forces in achieving real, sustainable success. What does it mean to be authentic? It means showing up as who you truly are, not who you think the world wants you to be. It means aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with your core values, beliefs, and passions, even when doing so makes you stand out, seem strange, or go against the grain. It means having the courage to say, "This is me," without hiding behind masks, personas, or pretense. And perhaps most importantly, it means making peace with the fact that not everyone will understand, accept, or support that version of you, and choosing to be authentic anyway. At first glance, authenticity might seem too idealistic or even risky. We're taught to adapt, to read the room, to dress a certain way, speak a certain way, and behave in a way that's deemed acceptable or professional. We're told to play the game, to market ourselves, brand ourselves, polish our image, all to fit into systems and cultures that often reward sameness more than originality. But here's the paradox. The more you try to fit in, the more invisible you become. The more you try to please everyone, the more you dilute your power. And the more you abandon your truth, the more you disconnect from your own potential. Authenticity is not just about personality, it's about power. When you are authentic, you tap into a kind of inner clarity that cannot be faked. You begin to attract opportunities that resonate with your values. You build relationships based on trust, not performance. You stop wasting energy trying to maintain appearances and start investing that energy in meaningful, purpose-driven action. People can sense authenticity. It's in the way you speak with conviction, the way your eyes light up when you talk about something that matters to you, the way you're willing to admit what you don't know instead of pretending to have all the answers. In every room you enter, your authenticity either resonates or repels, but either way it signals strength. It tells the world, this is not a version, this is the real thing. But let's talk about success. Not the narrow definition that's wrapped in money, fame, and status, but real success. The kind of success that brings joy, meaning, fulfillment, and legacy. Real success isn't about mimicking someone else's path. It's about discovering your own and walking it boldly. It's about doing work that reflects your values, nurturing relationships that nourish your soul, and living a life that feels aligned, even if it doesn't always look impressive on the outside. When you live authentically, your success is not accidental, it's intentional, because it's built on choices that reflect who you truly are. Think about the greatest artists, innovators, and leaders throughout history. Were they successful because they followed the rules? No. They were successful because they followed their truth. They challenged norms. They stayed rooted in their identity. They risked rejection, ridicule, and even failure. but they did so in the pursuit of something deeply personal and meaningful. That kind of success is unshakable. It doesn't crumble when opinions change, markets shift, or trends evolve, because it's not built on imitation, it's built on authenticity. Now, authenticity does not mean perfection. It doesn't mean broadcasting every flaw or refusing to grow. On the contrary, it means being honest about where you are while staying committed to where you want to go. It means admitting when you're wrong, learning from your mistakes, and evolving. Not because someone else told you to, but because it aligns with your values and goals. Authenticity also demands self-awareness. You have to know who you are in order to be who you are. That requires introspection, vulnerability, and a willingness to question the stories you've been told about yourself. It means peeling back the layers of expectation and uncovering the raw, unfiltered truth underneath. What do you care about? What breaks your heart? What fuels your fire? What version of success feels right for you, not just impressive to others? You'll find that once you begin living authentically, everything starts to change. Your work feels more meaningful. Your decisions feel more grounded. Your relationships become deeper. You begin to stop asking for permission and start creating your own definitions of value and worth. You stop chasing approval and begin pursuing purpose. Most importantly, you start to succeed on your own terms. Not just because you're different, but because you're real. And real always rises. Authenticity is not a gimmick, it's not a trend, it's a truth. It's the seed of every sustainable success story, a compass that keeps you aligned even when the path gets rough. When you embrace who you are, you unlock a kind of freedom that no achievement alone can offer. The freedom to live fully, lead boldly, and succeed unapologetically. At some point in your life, maybe after a painful failure, a disappointing moment, or a quiet period of reflection, a realization will dawn on you, as clear and undeniable as sunlight breaking through storm clouds. You are the one responsible for your life. Not your parents, not your past, not your circumstances, not the people who left, not the ones who doubted you, not the opportunities you didn't get, and not the setbacks you didn't choose. Just you. This truth is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it removes the safety net of blame. It means you can no longer point fingers, make excuses, or wait for someone else to save you. But it's also liberating because it puts the power back where it belongs, in your hands. You are not helpless. You are not stuck. You are not doomed to repeat the same cycles forever. You are the author of your story, and every day is a blank page waiting to be written by you and no one else. When you accept responsibility for your life, everything changes. You begin to understand that your mindset, choices, and actions are the steering wheel of your journey. You stop waiting for the right time, the perfect opportunity, or someone to give you permission. You realize that while you may not control every event that happens to you, you absolutely control how you respond. And that response shapes your future more than any external condition ever could. Taking responsibility is not the same as taking blame. It doesn't mean you have to carry guilt or shame for things outside your control. Life is unpredictable. Pain is inevitable. People will hurt you. Plans will fall apart. And circumstances will test you. But the key difference is this. Responsibility means owning your response. It means choosing to rise anyway, to adapt, to grow, to reclaim your power. It's the decision to say, no matter what happens to me, I choose how I move forward. Many people live their entire lives outsourcing this responsibility. They wait for luck, for love, for validation, for circumstances to change before they begin living the way they want to. They tell themselves, I'll be happy when, or I'll start my dream after, or I could have done that if only, but this mindset traps them in a state of perpetual waiting, always placing their destiny in someone else's hands. You'll hear people say, I didn't get that job because of the economy, or I'm not successful because I didn't have the support others had. And while circumstances absolutely play a role in shaping the terrain, they do not dictate the destination. There are countless people who started with nothing, no connections, no resources, no advantages, and still built extraordinary lives. Not because the world handed them a free pass, but because they took full responsibility for creating their own path. They stopped waiting and started building. They didn't ask, who's going to let me? They asked, who's going to stop me? Personal responsibility also means making peace with the idea that success is not handed out, it's earned. It's built one choice at a time, 1 hour of effort at a time, one act of courage at a time. And it also means facing the less glamorous parts of life. Discipline, sacrifice, and consistency. It means doing the hard thing even when no one is watching, showing up when you're tired, being honest with yourself when you're slipping, making the tough call not because it's easy, but because it's right. It also means letting go of the illusion that someone else has the answers. We're often tempted to believe that some guru, mentor, or system has the secret formula. But the truth is, no one knows exactly what's best for you. People can guide you, books can inspire you, teachers can challenge you, but ultimately, you have to decide. You have to choose your values. You have to commit to your path. You have to live with the consequences, both the rewards and the regret. Responsibility demands radical honesty. You can't pretend you're doing your best when you know you're holding back. You can't complain about your situation if you're not willing to take action to change it. And you can't keep blaming others for outcomes you've chosen to tolerate. It's not easy to look in the mirror and say, this is on me, but that moment of honesty is the first step towards transformation. And here's something rarely talked about. Responsibility is also the gateway to freedom. The more you own your life, the less control others have over you. You stop being manipulated by guilt, pressure, or approval. You don't need people to agree with your choices or understand your vision. You're not living for likes, applause, or validation. You're living for purpose, for peace, for the quiet pride that comes from knowing deep down that you are showing up for yourself fully, unapologetically, and consistently. This mindset shift is profound. You begin to see challenges as opportunities, not obstacles. Failures become feedback, not identity. You become a student of life, constantly learning, adapting, and improving, not because someone told you to, but because you decided that your life is worth that kind of effort. And here's the truth. You will not always get it right. You will stumble. You will make bad calls. You will fall short of your own expectations. But taking responsibility doesn't mean never failing. It means never quitting. It means never abandoning yourself in the process. It means getting back up, learning the lesson, and moving forward, wiser, stronger, and more determined than before. Because once you realize that your life is yours and yours alone, you stop playing the role of victim and you start stepping into the role of creator. You stop living by default and start living by design. And that moment, that decision to take full unapologetic responsibility for your life is where everything begins to shift in the noise of the world. A world filled with advice, opinions, demands, trends, algorithms, and expectations. There exists a quiet but powerful voice that often goes unheard. It is your own, the voice of your intuition, the whisper of your conscience, the echo of your most honest thoughts. The more you listen to that voice, the more you begin to build something that no one else can give you and no one else can take away, inner strength. But let's not misunderstand what inner strength really is. It is not arrogance, bravado, or the loud insistence that you're always right. It is not the absence of fear or the denial of vulnerability. True inner strength is quiet, grounded, and immovable. It is the unwavering certainty that you know who you are, what you believe in, and what you stand for, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. And that kind of strength, it doesn't appear overnight. It is cultivated slowly and intentionally through the ongoing practice of listening to yourself over and over again, especially when it's hard, especially when it's unpopular, and especially when it would be easier to just go along with the crowd. When you begin to listen to yourself, you develop an awareness of your needs, your limits, your values, and your truth. You start to recognize the difference between what feels right to you and what looks right to others. You stop outsourcing your decisions to external noise and instead begin trusting the wisdom that lives inside you. Let's be honest, the world is not designed to help you hear your inner voice. It's designed to distract you from it. Every screen, every scroll, every advertisement, every cultural script is pulling you away from your center, urging you to conform, to consume, to compare. We are constantly bombarded with messages telling us who we should be, what we should want, what success should look like, and what timeline we should follow. If you're not careful, you can spend your entire life living according to other people's narratives, slowly silencing your own. That's why listening to yourself is a radical act of self-respect. It is a way of saying, I matter, my truth matters, my intuition matters. And once you begin honoring that, your relationship with yourself transforms. You begin to build self-trust, and self-trust is the root of inner strength. The more you prove to yourself that you will listen, really listen, to your needs, your gut, your passions, your discomfort, your desires, the more confident you become in your ability to navigate life. You no longer need constant reassurance from others. You no longer crumble under doubt. You no longer depend on permission, because you've developed a compass that lives within you, and it's one you've tested, refined, and learned to follow with conviction. Listening to yourself also teaches you how to handle pressure. Life will always throw opinions at you, especially when you decide to do something bold, different, or unconventional. People will project their fears, their doubts, their rules onto your decisions. And if you haven't built the habit of listening inward, you'll be easily swayed. You'll second-guess yourself every time someone disapproves. You'll fold under scrutiny because your confidence wasn't rooted in your own clarity. It was built on borrowed beliefs. But when you've built inner strength by listening to yourself day after day, those same external pressures don't shake you. They don't define you. They become data, not directives. You can hear someone's opinion without adopting it. You can receive feedback without losing yourself in it. You can face resistance without retreating from your path. And listening to yourself doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive. It allows you to make aligned decisions, to choose work that excites your soul, to build relationships that nourish rather than drain, to set boundaries that honor your energy. It gives you the courage to walk away from things that look good on the outside but feel wrong on the inside. Because you're not chasing someone else's idea of fulfillment, you're creating your own. Over time, this practice becomes a kind of spiritual muscle. The more you flex it, the stronger it becomes. You begin to catch the subtle signals, the quiet unease in your stomach when you're about to say yes but mean no, the twinge of disconnection when you're doing something for approval rather than passion, the buzz of excitement that signals you're on the right track even when no one else sees it yet. You start to trust those signals, you start to obey them, and eventually you stop asking the world for clarity because you've learned how to find it within. Listening to yourself also builds emotional resilience, because life will not always go according to plan. You will face disappointment, rejection, and uncertainty. But when your strength is rooted in your inner truth, you're able to keep going, not because the road is easy, but because the destination is yours. You don't quit just because things get hard. You stay because the path is aligned. You've chosen it, and therefore you own it. And perhaps most profoundly, listening to yourself helps you heal. So many of us have spent years ignoring ourselves, silencing our pain, numbing our needs, hiding our truths in order to be accepted, approved, or loved. But when you finally pause and say, I'm ready to hear what I've been trying to tell myself, something inside you shifts. You reconnect with parts of yourself that have been buried under layers of noise, shame, and fear. You begin to return to your wholeness, not because someone fixed you, but because you finally listened to yourself long enough to remember who you were all along. And the more you do that, the more you sit with your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, the more you realize that everything you need to live a powerful, purposeful, and meaningful life has been inside you this entire time. Not in the next book, not in the next podcast, not in the next person's advice, but in you. Because when you listen to yourself, you stop following and start leading. You stop surviving and start thriving. You stop doubting and start believing. And through that process, slowly and silently, you build an inner strength that no one can shake. From the earliest days of childhood, most of us are conditioned to crave approval. We learn to associate praise with worth, applause with success, and attention with value. A gold star, a pat on the back, a compliment. These tiny affirmations become emotional currency. We grow up learning to chase them, sometimes even to define ourselves by them. But somewhere along the way, many of us never unlearn that pattern. We carry it into adulthood, into our careers, relationships, creative endeavors, and personal goals. And before we realize it, we are living for validation, not for truth. External validation, in its many forms, is like a drug. A comment, a like, a promotion, a compliment, a retweet, a nod of approval from someone we admire or fear. It gives us a rush, a brief feeling of significance. But just like any drug, the high fades quickly. And when it does, we go looking for more. We keep creating, not because we're inspired, but because we want to be praised. We keep speaking, not because we have something meaningful to say, but because we want to be liked. We keep achieving, not because it fulfills us, but because we want to impress. But here's the hard truth. Chasing external validation is a never-ending race with no finish line. Because the moment you begin to depend on it, you also begin to give your power away. You tie your self-worth to metrics you don't control. You let others become the judge of your value, the gatekeepers of your identity, the narrators of your story. You start curating your life to be palatable. You second-guess your instinct. You edit your voice. You trade authenticity for acceptance. And somewhere in that process, you lose touch with who you really are. The need for validation is not inherently wrong, it's human. We are wired for connection, for affirmation. It feels good to be seen, appreciated, understood. But when that need becomes a dependency, when we start molding ourselves to fit other people's expectations, we become prisoners of their opinions. And the irony is that in trying to gain approval, we often lose the very thing that makes us unique and powerful, our individuality. Think about how many dreams have been abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because someone said, that's unrealistic. Think about how many ideas went unspoken, how many stories went unwritten, how many songs went unsung, all because the creator feared judgment. Think about how many people are living half-lives, watered-down versions of themselves because they were taught that pleasing others was more important than honoring their truth. The problem with external validation is that it's external. It lives outside of you. It changes with time, with trends, with mood, with culture. One day they love you, the next they forget you. One moment you're praised, the next you're criticized. And if you let that roller coaster define your worth, you will always feel unstable. You will always be adjusting, pivoting, performing, not because you want to, but because you feel you have to in order to remain acceptable, respected, admired. But validation is a slippery standard. Everyone has different tastes, beliefs, preferences, and biases. If you try to please one group, you may alienate another. If you try to say what's popular, you may silence what's honest. If you try to fit in everywhere, you end up belonging nowhere, not even to yourself. And here's something most people won't tell you. Even when you get the validation you're chasing, it doesn't actually satisfy you, not deeply. Because if it didn't come from a place of authenticity, it always feels hollow. You'll wonder, do they like me? Or the version of me I'm projecting? You'll feel the gnawing sense that you're living someone else's life, playing a character you created to get love, not respect. But when you stop chasing validation and start living from your center, everything changes. You begin to create not for claps, but for clarity. You begin to speak not to impress, but to express. You begin to act not for applause, but for alignment. You shift from performance to presence, from seeking to standing. This doesn't mean you never receive external validation again. It means you don't need it to know who you are. It means your self-worth is no longer on leash from other people's opinions. You stop handing out the keys to your peace of mind. You stop negotiating your identity for temporary acceptance. And most importantly, you learn to validate yourself first. Self-embarrassment is not about arrogance. It's not about ignoring feedback, rejecting community, or pretending you don't care what people think. It's about rooting your value internally so that outside opinions become information, not identity. You can take what's useful, discard what's not, and keep moving forward with clarity and courage. And to do this, to really release the grip of external validation, you must learn to sit in the discomfort of being misunderstood. You must accept that not everyone will get it. Not everyone will like you. Not everyone will celebrate your choices. And that's okay. Your job is not to be universally liked. Your job is to be universally true to yourself, first and always. So many of the world's most impactful thinkers, creators, and leaders were misunderstood in their time. They were criticized, mocked, rejected until they weren't, until the world caught up, until history redefined them. But what made them powerful was not the praise they eventually received. It was the inner compass they followed when no one else believed. They did not wait for applause to walk in their truth. They walked whether the world clapped or not. That is the kind of strength that can only come from within, from a place so grounded in self-awareness, so secure in purpose, so deeply connected to truth that no amount of noise can drown it out. And that strength begins to form the moment you decide that external validation is not your fuel. It's not your compass. It's not your reason. It's just noise. Background music to a story that only you can write. In a world that rewards fitting in, conforming, and keeping up appearances, being authentic might feel like a rebellion, a quiet revolution against a pressure to become what you're not. And yet, ironically, the very thing most people spend their lives trying to fake, connection, opportunity, belonging, success, is the exact thing that flows naturally when you stop performing and start showing up as your truest self. Authenticity isn't just about being yourself in a vague or feel-good way. It's about living in alignment with your deepest truths, your actual values, your real voice, your unique experiences, your honest energy. It's about having the courage to express who you really are, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's unpopular, even when it might make people uncomfortable. It's about not editing your identity just to please the room you're standing in. And here's what's beautiful and difficult about authenticity. It's magnetic, but not to everyone. It repels as much as it attracts. But what it does attract is right people, the right relationships, the right opportunities, the right environments that are in sync with your soul, not just your image. So many people walk through life wearing masks, not literal ones, but emotional and social disguises. Filters they've adopted to fit in, to be liked, to be chosen. But when you build a life based on a mask, everything you attract, the job, the friends, the partner, the success, is drawn to the version of you that isn't real. And then what? You're trapped. Trapped in a relationship where you can't breathe. Trapped in a career that pays well but costs your soul. Trapped in an identity you never wanted, but one you now feel obligated to maintain. Authenticity shatters that illusion. It's raw. It's sometimes messy. It makes you vulnerable, but it also sets you free. Because once you drop the mask and begin to speak, act, and live from your truth, you start attracting resonance, not just attention. And there's a massive difference. Attention is surface level. It comes from noise. Resonance is depth. It comes from truth. And only truth has the power to create connections and possibilities that last. Consider this. The job you're afraid to apply for because you don't fit the expected mold might be the perfect fit for your unique vision, but only if you present yourself honestly. The friend you think might not get your quirks might become your deepest ally, but only if you stop pretending to be someone you're not. The opportunity that seems out of reach might actually be waiting for someone exactly like you, someone bold enough to be real. Because people can feel authenticity. Even if they can't articulate it, they know when it's present. It's in the way you speak without second guessing. It's in the way your values remain intact even under pressure. It's in your tone, your energy, your courage. And people who are also grounded in their truth will recognize yours. They'll be drawn to it, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. On the flip side, inauthenticity is repellent. Not always at first, but eventually. If you build your success on pretending, you will have to maintain that act constantly. You will exhaust yourself. You will become hypervigilant, always wondering if people like you for you or just for the character you've been playing, and eventually you will either burn out or break free. The paradox is that the more you chase opportunities by pretending, the more they elude you. But the more you become unapologetically yourself, the more aligned opportunities begin to emerge. Not because the universe magically rewards authenticity, but because you become available. You stop wasting energy trying to be what you're not. You stop hiding. You start speaking clearly. You start moving with purpose. You start saying no to what doesn't fit, and in doing so, you create room for what does. Authenticity also creates clarity. When you know who you are, you can make choices that reflect it. You don't just take any offer. You don't just chase every trend. You don't need to be everywhere, do everything, or impress everyone. You only need to honor your lane and trust that the right opportunities will meet you there. This kind of alignment is incredibly powerful. It reduces friction, it draws experiences and relationships that feel like they were designed for you, because in a way they were. And authenticity isn't a fixed trait, it's a practice, a daily decision. It requires you to listen to yourself, question your patterns, shed old layers, and sometimes disappoint people who only loved you when you were compliant. But every time you choose truth over performance, alignment over approval, integrity over popularity, you grow stronger, you get clearer, and you send a signal to the world: this is who I am. If something is meant for me, it will find me here, not in some fake version of me I created out of fear. And when the right opportunities do arrive, ones that honor your voice, match your values, and feed your soul, you'll know they're real because they weren't manipulated or manufactured. They weren't won through charm or strategy. They were drawn to the quiet fire of your truth. They came not because you reached outside of yourself, but because you finally stopped running from who you really are. So what is the real key of success? It's not found in someone else's approval. It's not hiding in a book someone told you to read. It's not waiting in the next trend, the next podcast, the next social media post, or even the next mentor's advice. The real key, the one that unlocks a life of purpose, clarity, and true fulfillment, is already inside you. It has been all along. It's your voice. It's your intuition. It's your truth. When you stop outsourcing your decisions and start listening to the wisdom that's already within you, you reclaim your power. You stop living a borrowed life and start living your own. You discover a strength that doesn't waver, a direction that doesn't rely on a GPS, and a purpose that can't be shaken by noise, doubt, or rejection. So trust yourself fiercely, unapologetically, and relentlessly. Follow your gut even when it trembles. Speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Say yes only when your heart agrees. Say no without guilt. Stand alone if you must, because success is not about how many people cheer you on. It's about how deeply you honor the voice that lives inside you. That voice is not your weakness. It is your power. And that, more than anything else, is the key of success. Only listen to yourself.